Let's put the spotlight then on B2B education software firm that's Educational Initiatives, or EI. They have recently launched a fundraise of 166 crore rupees from the HCL Group. Pranav Kothari is the CEO of Educational Initiatives and now joins us on the channel. Thanks so much for taking time out. Let's begin by talking about this fundraise then, 166 crores from the HCL Group. What exactly is going to be their involvement, if any? Is it just strategic in nature in terms of financial in nature? And what will it be utilized towards?
So this is a financial investment from the HCL Capital. The interest is they've actually been using our products in the Shivnadar schools for the past 12 years. So that's how they got to know of us by looking at our Asset and Mindspark products that the teachers and the students are benefiting by in terms of assessments and adaptive learning. The investment will be used for us to expand into international countries. We already have a presence in UAE and South Africa, but we want to go to Saudi Arabia, the remaining GCC countries, and a few select other countries. So those are the things that we'll be doing. Of course, generative AI has been the talk of town, and we have integrated this into our English learning product. But I think with the HCL investment, greater technology focus and new age technologies is what we're looking towards adding to EI.
Right, so Pranav, you guys have offerings like EI Asset, Arabic, etc. You're really looking at meeting the regional needs. How exactly does that work? How exactly would you explain what Educational Initiatives does?
We've actually found that mother tongue language learning, or let's say learning in the language of comfort, is very useful. It's pedagogically very sound, and children learn fastest in that. One can always learn a new language after you've mastered a particular language, where you can read with meaning, you can speak fluently, and eventually also express your thoughts by writing. So our products are in 10 Indian languages. They span almost 25 different states, ranging from the poorest government schools to some of the rich private schools. So the addition of Arabic is in line with this philosophy. A lot of the Gulf countries have students who are native speakers of the Arabic language, and by making this product, we can both sort of increase the reach of EI, but also ensure that children learn with understanding. I've seen too often when children are getting English language products but don't have a good grasp of English, then it doesn't really stick. They don't really absorb much from it. So I see anywhere we work, the need for having local language support, and I would also say contextualization, right? So for example, when we teach fractions, we use pizza in private schools, but we use a roti for Punjabi government schools. We use dosa for some of the southern states. So both the language translation as well as contextualization to images, words that students could be familiar with in their surroundings is a very important element of learning.
And you do have a presence in India, the UAE, South Africa, and Singapore. How are you looking to further penetrate into different geographies?
I'm usually looking for local partners, entrepreneurs, companies that have been working with the schools. I don't necessarily see the need to always start from scratch. We have been very lucky to work with the partners in UAE, South Africa, and Singapore. All of them are local entrepreneurs. They had businesses, and this sort of accentuated the work that they were doing. And so we will go deeper in those three countries by having a greater sales presence and also conversations with the government, because local regulation sometimes can play a very positive impact in learning. For example, about 15 years ago, in a global test of 74 countries of PISA, UAE actually stood about 50th out of 74. India stood second last, by the way. And then the Sheikh sort of had a vision that by 2020, they'd like to be in the top 20. And so he mandated that every child in every grade would take an assessment. And a school can only increase their fees or take more students if year on year they're able to show an improvement in learning outcomes. And because of that and other initiatives they've done, actually in the latest round of PISA, they were amongst the top 10. Dubai was amongst the top 10. So we feel that understanding local nuances nuances, context, business conditions, government policies is going to be important to grow in those regions. And that's why we're carefully picking a few countries. It's easier to say we're going international, but it's more like a national strategy for each country that one has to develop.
You have also, in terms of financials, seen a good growth. There's been a 56% jump in revenue from operations in FY23. Your overall profit as well has seen an increase. Take us through your financial parameters and how you see the company growing.
Yeah, so we've been profitable since inception. We started in 2001, 23 years ago, when I don't think EdTech was even an industry. The founders ran a school and they were very saddened by the rote learning in India, where children are simply memorizing facts, figures, and procedures for an exam without really understanding it. So that was our origin. We just ran a tight shop, and over the last 23 years, we've turned a profit every single year, except COVID, when the school finances were in disarray. Over the last 3 years, we've tripled. So it's about a 40% CAGR over that 3-year time period. I think we can do better than that in the next 3 years, because there is a new education policy that emphasizes competency-based questions, which means you're not being asked a fact from a textbook, but you're being asked a skill to demonstrate. The second is there is greater acceptance of technology-based learning after COVID. It's unfortunate in COVID, it just became a Zoom classroom, but I think technology can be used to personalize instruction. Even twins have very different learning styles, and the fact that technology can teach every child at their own pace, in their own language, with emotional support, customized to the mood of the child, it can be a great complement to the efforts that the human teacher is, who has a tough job, because even if you and I walk into a classroom with 40 different students, it's not easy. And technology is a great way to personalize instruction and relay back to the main teacher as to where the biggest gaps are in terms of the majority of the students, which can inform what they do the next day in the classroom. So that's how we're looking at growing this business, because we feel more schools will have the hardware, computer apps. I even imagine 10 years from now, students will be allowed to bring their own device, just like they bring their pencil box today. And those are good tailwinds for business to grow over the next few years. Universally, the need for improving quality of education is there. Universally, teacher quality and quantity is going down. And so from a market fit perspective, we are well positioned to tackle this problem.
And I understand as well that EI is looking to acquire EdTech product companies. Have you got anything lined up?
Yeah, I think so far we've grown organically over the last 2 decades. We're looking for like-minded folks who really value pedagogy. I think in the world of EdTech, there hasn't been enough conversation of pedagogy, and it's only been about technology. So I think a pedagogy-first approach has worked for us, and that's why there are 5 different independent third-party studies that show that the impact on learning of language and math by the use of our products, children are learning about 300% more than a control group. So the number one criteria for us in an acquisition would be the pedagogy base on which the product, the company has been developed. Number 2 would be a presence in some of these chosen geographies that we would like to expand. Of course, culture is important, and so integration of 2 companies is like a marriage, and we'd love to sort of get a culture fit there. So those are the criteria that you would evaluate on. We have been profitable since inception, and for me, profit is a good surrogate for whether customers are willing to pay for the quality of the offering, right? So there are schools in India that have renewed contracts with us for 15, 20 years, and that's the strongest endorsement of whether you are delivering value, learning impact that the customer is willing to pay for. So for us, we will look for profitability because we see that as the strongest sign of customers willing to pay the company for the products it creates.
Okay, thanks so much, Pranav, for joining in.